Welcome to our new program today. We are embarking on a deep dive designed specifically for you, focusing on the really crucial elements of mastering English pronunciation and accent.
Oh, yeah.
And if you've ever felt, overwhelmed by this idea of sounding perfect, just relax.
Yeah.
Our mission today is to sort of shift the goalposts entirely. We're moving away from that impossible idea of like flawless imitation and focusing purely on the power of clarity and flow.
That shift is absolutely essential. I mean, the universal ultimate goal for any language learner should always be intelligibility.
Right.
That is the degree to which you are effortlessly understood by whoever you're talking to. If you can communicate your ideas without making your listeners strain, maybe to hear the difference between a T and a D, for example, then your accent is perfectly fine. It really is. The reality is aiming for a zero accent is, well, not only unnecessary, it often distracts you from practicing the mechanical aspects that truly speed up fluency, things like linking and rhythm.
I think that's an incredibly healthy perspective. We're aiming for flawless communication, not flawless mimicry.
Exactly.
So to start that journey, we need to establish a rock-solid foundation. Today, we're going to give you three highly practical, even fun daily exercises you can integrate into your routine like right away.
And once we have those tools sorted, we'll move into the specifics. We're going to really dissect the mechanical DNA of what's called the Standard American Accent, or SAA.
Okay.
Looking at everything from, say, the flap T and the ubiquitous schwa sound to the complex rules that govern connected speech, how words flow together.
And because English isn't just one thing, right? It's not a monolith. We'll then explore some crucial regional variation.
Definitely.
Like the Southern drawl versus the twang, the accents of the Northeast, things that are really vital for advanced listening comprehension.
Yeah, understanding those helps so much. And we'll round out the discussion with some essential cultural fluency points, analyzing famous movie quotes and even brand names to show you how these phonetic rules apply in the real world.
So we're breaking down not just what native speakers say.
Right, but how it's actually produced, and perhaps most importantly, why those patterns exist. Often it comes down to efficiency, conserving energy in speech.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Let's unpack this then, starting with that core philosophy of intelligibility and the practical daily tools for building a solid foundation.
Right, so when we talk about achieving high intelligibility, we have to look beyond just pronouncing single words perfectly in isolation. That's not how we talk.
No, definitely not.
We need to focus on four core kind of interwoven components that really dictate the rhythm and the musicality of English.
Okay, what are those four pillars?
First, there is pronunciation itself, making sure the individual sounds like B, T, H, R are clear. That's the baseline.
Got it.
Second is intonation. That's the rise and fall of your voiceover phrases. It conveys emotion, grammatical structure. It's huge.
The music of the language.
Precisely. Third is connected speech, how words blend and sort of collide seamlessly without awkward gaps. And finally, correct stress patterns. This works on two levels. Within long words, like stressing the second syllable of delicious. And also within sentences, like stressing the most important content word, maybe a noun or verb, not usually the preposition or article.
Right. So if any one of those four is really off.
Exactly. If any one of those four components is significantly impaired, intelligibility just drops rapidly. It doesn't matter how big your vocabulary is.
And that's why, those endless, tedious drills sometimes don't quite work. You might perfect a single word, but if your intonation is flat or you don't use connected speech, you still sound, well, a bit awkward.
You do. It lacks flow. So the three exercises we've lined up today, they aim to integrate all four of these components naturally, almost without you realizing it.
Okay, first up, TED Talks.
Yes, TED Talks. They're kind of perfect for this because they are fundamentally about effective communication.
True.
They're motivational, they're informative, and usually get really clean, high-quality audio and video.
And the genius of this approach, as you mentioned, is the dual viewing. So first, you choose a talk on a subject that genuinely interests you. That's important, right? For engagement.
Absolutely key. If you're bored, you won't stick with it.
And you watch it without the transcript first.
Yeah.
But you're not just passively listening. What's the single most valuable physical thing a learner should be mimicking during this first viewing?
Okay, beyond just the sound itself, you need to focus keenly on the speaker's nonverbal cues, specifically the mechanics of their articulation. Watch their mouth movements. We often talk about muscle memory for pronunciation, by observing how the speaker moves their lips, their tongue, their jaw, how wide they open their mouth for certain vowels, how they shape their lips for, say, a W sound, you're basically mapping that visual movement to the auditory result.
So you're connecting the look and the sound.
Exactly. It's a critical step because it forces you to potentially use muscles in your mouth that might be underutilized in your native language. You're building that physical awareness.
So you're not just listening to the sound, you're mapping the production of the sound. What about their overall delivery, their body language and stuff?
Absolutely. Notice the body language, the hand gestures, and how they use their voice, the musicality, that intonation we talked about, and the strategic placement of stress. Great public speakers are masters of rhythm.
Right.
They pause, they emphasize certain words, they vary their pitch to keep the audience engaged. Making mental notes on rhythm is really vital here.
Okay, so that's the first viewing. Now here's where we really accelerate the practice, right? The second viewing changes the game. Now you watch the talk again, but this time you activate the transcript feature.
Right, and many TED Talk websites and other platforms too offer an interactive transcript where the words are highlighted in real time as the speaker says them. This is gold.
Why is that so powerful?
Because it helps you bridge that crucial gap between the written word, which, let's face it, most learners rely on heavily, and its actual sound in connected speech.
Ah, so seeing the reductions happen.
Exactly. If you see the words going to on the screen, but you clearly hear the speaker say gonna, the highlighting shows you precisely where that phonetic reduction occurred. It trains your brain to associate the written form with the natural spoken flow, where native speakers blend and reduce constantly.
So the practical application here is to use that pause button. Like a lot.
Ruthlessly, yes. If you hear a phrase that confuses you, or maybe one that just has a rhythm you like the sound of, stop the video. Practice shadowing the sentence out loud. Focus intensely on matching the speaker's intonation, their stress, their flow. The more you internalize that the words on the page are just a guideline for the sounds being made, the faster you'll acquire that natural cadence.
Plus, there's a huge efficiency benefit for the learner here.
Enormous. You aren't just improving mechanics, you chose a topic that interests you, remember.
Right.
So you are simultaneously acquiring specialized vocabulary and knowledge in areas you actually care about, whether that's, I don't know, astrophysics, philosophy, cooking, whatever. You're getting dual use out of your practice time. It's smart learning.
Okay, exercise number 2. This one sounds fun.
Yeah.
Sing along and karaoke.
Yeah, for music lovers, this is arguably the most enjoyable exercise.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, the most powerful for internalizing connected speech. Singing along to English songs, whether you're brave enough for karaoke or just doing it in the shower.
The method seems simple enough. Find the lyrics to your favorite songs. Could be current hits, could be oldies.
Whatever you like.
And just sing along, verse by verse.
Right. The hidden benefits of singing, though, are quite profound, and it's partly due to the physics involved. Singing forces you to sustain vowels and connect syllables smoothly,
Okay.
which naturally reinforces word stress and emphasis. But I think the biggest benefit is mastering liaisons.
Liaisons, that's where words blend together.
Exactly, where one word blends right into the next without any gap.
And that blending is often a huge stumbling block for learners, isn't it? Because the gaps between words that you see in written text, they just vanish when people speak naturally.
They absolutely disappear. Singing requires you to maintain a continuous airflow, and that forces those liaisons. It makes them feel natural.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Think of a simple phrase like take off. In rapid speech or in singing, it becomes take off. That K sound has effectively moved over to start the next syllable. Singing sections with fast lyrics really helps you internalize that kind of blending. If you're struggling with a complex liaison in speech, sometimes trying to sing it instead makes the connection easier. Your focus shifts to the continuous musical phrase, not the separate words.
That makes sense, but there's a caveat here, isn't there, about choosing the right singer?
Oh, a crucial one. Choose your singers carefully. The best songs for learning are those where the artists enunciate well.
Enunciate, meaning they pronounce words clearly.
Yeah, clarity and crispness of word formation. If the singer deliberately slurs words or creates a sort of muffled blend for artistic effect, it can actually be harder to extract the correct liaisons and sounds. Pop singers, country artists, musical theater performers often enunciate very clearly. Some other genres might prioritize tone or mood over distinct lyrical articulation.
Okay, good tip.
And this is a perfect place to bring up that fascinating point about accent mutability, how accents can change. If you watch an old interview with, say, the Beatles.
Oh, yeah, you hear their strong Liverpool accents, very British English.
Definitely. Yet, when they sang their biggest hits, especially the early ones, the sound was often much closer to a standard American accent. It's almost startlingly different sometimes.
Why is that?
Well, it raises a crucial insight. The mechanics of singing, which often prioritize more open vowels and require specific tongue positions to project the sound, can actually override the native accent's typical rules, especially concerning things like rhoticity, the pronunciation of the R sound. It proves that accent is highly mutable. It's essentially a collection of muscle habits, not some permanent fixture of your identity.
That's really encouraging, and it leads to a great application tip. You suggest trying a little experiment.
Yeah, try this. Record yourself saying a basic sentence like, I'm going out to buy some eggs. First, just speak it normally, paying attention to whatever your natural accent features are.
Okay.
Then try singing the same sentence.
Yep.
Maybe put a little melody to it. Really lean into the rhythm of a song. Now, compare the recordings. Did your pronunciation shift? Maybe the vowels changed? Did the R sounds get stronger or weaker? Did you connect going and out more smoothly, like going out?
Ah, interesting comparison.
And repetition is key here. Playing a song you genuinely love on a loop, singing along. It turns practice into something enjoyable, and you start internalizing that flow without even trying too hard.
Right, our third exercise takes us back in time a bit. Practicing the transatlantic accent, sometimes called the mid-Atlantic accent.
That's right. It sounds quite formal, doesn't it? Almost theatrical to modern ears.
It really does. What exactly is it? Is it from a specific place?
No, that's the interesting thing. It's not a natural regional accent at all. It's a consciously learned, very stylized pronunciation. It's kind of a blend of features from received pronunciation, sort of standard British English, and general American English.
So it was deliberately created.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It was engineered and taught primarily in prestigious theater schools and for early transatlantic radio broadcasts. It became the standard for what was considered high society or, glamorous speech in Golden Age Hollywood films, roughly from the 1920s through maybe the early 1960s.
So it was like an intentional, relatively made-up language of status and clarity.
Precisely. It was taught to actors who needed to project authority, sophistication, glamour, and especially clarity, regardless of whether their character was supposed to be from New York or London. Think of those classic Hollywood sounds: Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, Bette Davis, Audrey Hepburn.
Ah, yes. You can hear it now. Very crisp.
Extremely crisp. They mastered this highly deliberate style.
So what makes this sort of manufactured accent so valuable for modern pronunciation practice if it's not really used anymore?
It's unparalleled clarity. The transatlantic accent is crystal clear because every single sound is highly articulated. Vowels are very pure, consonants are sharp and crisp, and the speakers generally don't rush. When you practice imitating it, you are forced to make deliberate, full muscle movements for every sound.
Okay, so it's like pronunciation weightlifting.
Kind of. It forces good form. The practice then is pretty straightforward. Find some old black and white films featuring these actors. Watch clips on YouTube, maybe. Listen carefully, pause the video, and repeat phrases or sentences. You can use English subtitles to help, and maybe even write down phrases that sound particularly interesting or well articulated.
And the goal isn't to actually talk like Cary Grant in everyday life.
Not necessarily, unless you want to.
Yeah.
The real value lies in leveraging its demanding high level of deliberate articulation to improve your baseline skills in enunciation, that clarity we mentioned, and also the fluidity of your connectional speech, even when you go back to a more standard accent. It forces you to hit the target sounds precisely, ensuring you don't get lazy and blend away critical consonants too early.
So it's an exercise in hyperarticulation.
Exactly. That yields clearer, more controlled speech when you return to your preferred SAA or another target accent. It sharpens your tools.
Okay, great. So to summarize part one, we've established that intelligibility is the goal, and mastering articulation, intonation, connected speech, and stress through integrated methods like TED Talks, singing, and even shadowing this transatlantic accent is way more potent than just dry rote memorization.
Right. We've built the foundation.
Now, let's move to the nuts and bolts, the specific mechanical DNA of the standard American accent.
Okay, transitioning from those general practice methods to the specific mechanics of SAA is really vital. SAA has a very distinct rhythm and flow, and understanding these underlying rules not only improves your ability to speak with that accent, but it vastly boosts your listening comprehension when you hear Americans speak.
Absolutely. Let's start with probably the most obvious feature that separates SAA from many other major English dialects, the R sound, ###1, pronunciation of final Rs.
Yes, the R, we need to introduce a couple of terms here, rhotic and non-rhotic. SAA is fundamentally a rhotic accent.
Rhotic means
Meaning the R sound is pronounced clearly pretty much everywhere it appears in the spelling, especially at the end of a word or just before a consonant sound.
So words like father, car, water, and park all keep that clear R sound.
Correct. And this is a primary distinction from many non-rhotic accents, like standard British English, often called received pronunciation or RP, where those final R's are typically dropped or softened into a vowel sound. Father becomes faith, car becomes ka.
Right.
So for a learner aiming for SAA, the rule is pretty unambiguous. Pronounce those R's. Make the sound.
How do you make that sound correctly?
To achieve the correct SAAR, the body of your tongue needs to pull back, and the sides might curl up slightly toward the center or roof of your mouth, but the tip shouldn't touch anywhere. It hovers. If your R sounds weak or just like a vowel extension, you probably need to intensify that tongue retraction, pull it back more firmly.
Now, it is important to note the U.S. isn't perfectly rhotic everywhere, right? There are regional exceptions.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We do have regional pockets, particularly in parts of New England, like Boston, which we'll touch on, and also in some historical Southern dialects where non-rhotic R-dropping still occurs or occurred historically. But if you're learning based on national media and network news, most movies, the standard American expectation is definitely that the R is pronounced clearly. It's the default. Tag 2, the flap T, the soft T.
Okay, next up, the flap T. You mentioned this earlier. It feels like a non-negotiable cornerstone of American English flow, and honestly, one of the hardest adjustments for learners who are used to really sharp, aspirated T sound.
It's fundamental, and the mechanism behind it is actually highly efficient, which is probably why it evolved. The T sound changes into a very quick, soft D sound, sometimes called a tap or a flap, specifically when the T falls between two vowel sounds.
Okay, between two vowels.
Right. So instead of articulating a strong, breathy D sound, which takes a bit more effort, your tongue just quickly flaps or taps against the alveolar ridge, that bumpy spot right behind your upper front teeth.
Give us those classic examples again.
Sure. Water becomes water. City becomes city. Party becomes pardee. Better becomes better. This flap T happens because that quick flap movement is simply faster and requires less muscular effort than producing a full aspirated T sound in that position. It saves time and energy.
And this is why words that look totally different can end up sounding identical in SAA.
Exactly. If you are just listening and you hear the sound midi-L, you can't actually tell if the speaker means metal, the material, or metal, the award, without context.
Because the T in metal reduces.
It flaps. It becomes that soft D, making it phonetically indistinguishable from the actual D sound in metal. Context becomes key.
Does it happen anywhere else?
Yes. Another common place is right before a syllabic L, especially the dark L, which we'll get to. But think of words like little, bottle, or rattle. You get that flap T just before the tongue settles into that L sound. Say little slowly. Lit L. You feel that quick flap before the tongue makes the L sound. Tag 3, linking, connected speech detail.
Okay, linking. This is where we really move past single word mechanics and embrace that connected speech you mentioned. This is what makes SAA sound so rhythmic and seamless, I think.
It absolutely is. Linking is simply the phonetic process. It happens automatically for native speakers of connecting the final consonant sound of one word with the initial vowel sound of the very next word.
So the consonant sort of jumps over.
Effectively, yes. The consonant sound moves over to start the next syllable. This eliminates the gap and creates the flow.
Let's use an application example. You used bottle of water before.
Right. In bottle of water, we link the final L sound in bottle, which is often a dark L, to the initial vowel sound in the preposition of, which is usually reduced to a schwa.
So it's not bottle of.
No. The words cease to be separate entities phonetically. They become bideal, bideala. See how that L connects?
Yeah, I hear it. Now let's try that complex integration again, combining multiple rules. The question, can I get a bottle of water?
Okay, let's break it down step by step.
Go.
First, can I often reduces right down to nigh. The vowel in can weakens or disappears. More critically, for this example, look at get a. The final T in get is now between two vowels. The vowel sound in I, or the reduced nigh, and the vowel sound in the article a.
So the T flaps.
The T becomes a flap T, that soft D sound. And that resulting D sound links smoothly to the article a. So geta becomes geta.
Okay, geta.
And we already know bottle of becomes bod del way, and water becomes water.
Right.
So the whole question flows rapidly, something like, can I get bod del of water? Notice how smooth that is. There are no real pauses between those words.
Wow, yeah, it sounds completely different from reading it word by word.
It really does. And if you practice just that one complex sentence until it feels smooth, you're simultaneously practicing the flap T, linking, and reductions. It's incredibly efficient practice.
So for learners wanting to practice identifying these links on their own, what's a good method?
Okay, here's an expert tip. Take any short paragraph of English text, go through it line by line, maybe with a pen, and manually mark every single spot where a word ends in a consonant sound and the very next word begins with a vowel sound.
Find those CV connections.
Exactly. Consonant-vowel transitions. Once you've marked those links, read the passage out loud, making a conscious effort to slide that final consonant sound over to start the next word. Don't leave a gap.
You mentioned The Hobbit.
Yeah, the opening line is perfect. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Let's find the links. In ends in A starts with link INA, hole ends in L. In starts with A, link dot hole in, live dot ends in D. A starts with link, live D's in T.
So, IN, hole in the ground there, live D Hobbit.
Precisely. That's 3 instances of linking right there in one short sentence. You'll feel the change in rhythm immediately when you connect them versus pausing. Hashtag 4. Reductions, shortening sounds.
Okay, linking is about connecting. Reductions are about shortening or changing sounds, right?
Exactly. Reductions are instances where speakers shorten, change, or sometimes entirely remove particular sounds, especially in common, unstressed function words. Things like prepositions, articles, auxiliary verbs, they are absolutely the scaffolding that enables the speed and rhythm of spoken American English.
We all know the famous ones like going to becoming, go and want to becoming wanna, and have to becoming hafta. But this process goes deeper, doesn't it?
Oh, much deeper. Linguists sometimes call this process phonetic erosion. Over time, very high-frequency words that carry relatively low meaning tend to shed sounds for efficiency. We even see it with modal verbs, especially followed by have. Shoulda becomes shoulda, could have, coulda, would have, woulda.
Now, we really must emphasize the usage context here. While these are crucial for sounding natural in spoken rhythm,
Absolutely avoid them in formal writing.
right, they belong strictly to conversational contexts. Don't write, I want to go in an academic essay.
Please don't. But the critical insight regarding speaking them is perhaps the most difficult aspect for learners to master. Reductions are inherently unemphasized or de-emphasized.
What do you mean by that?
If you practice saying, for instance, I want to go, but you put heavy stress on the word wanna, I want to go, it sounds really awkward and unnatural. It actually calls attention to the reduction itself.
Ah, okay.
Instead, reductions must be said quickly and softly. They should almost disappear into the background. They act as the near-invisible connective tissue that keeps the sentence flowing smoothly towards the more important, emphasized content words, like the main verb or noun. They are background noise that facilitates foreground clarity. Say them lightly. Hashtag 5. The reduction of for.
That's a great point about de-emphasis. Now, the word for is a perfect example of a single word reduction that often goes unnoticed but dramatically affects flow.
It really is. Because for is the preposition, a function word, it usually carries low information content unless you're specifically contrasting it or emphasizing it for some reason. So when it's unstressed, which is most of the time, the vowel sound changes completely. It loses its O sound and shifts to the schwa.
Making it sound like.
Fur, like the animal fur, F-U-R.
So if I say, I waited for an hour, I shouldn't pronounce it with that full, long O sound, F-O-R.
Correct. Saying I waited F-O-R an hour sounds very deliberate, maybe even a bit unnatural, and it slows the sentence down dramatically. Reducing it to the soft fur allows you to just glide quickly over the word, I waited for an hour, I waited for an hour. Mastering these small, super high-frequency reductions adds authenticity and speed almost unconsciously once you get the hang of it. Hashtag 6. The schwa sound, the unstressed vowel.
Okay, we've mentioned the schwa a few times now. It feels like this is pretty central to everything.
If the SAA has a mechanical heart, it is the schwa sound. Phonetically, it's represented by that upside-down E, and it just sounds like a neutral like the sound you make when you're hesitating.
Right.
It is the ultimate expression of energy conservation in spoken English.
That makes sense. It's the sound we make when we don't want to expend the energy for a full, clear vowel sound.
Precisely. It's the minimal effort vowel. And the key learning here, the really crucial thing, is that any vowel letter, A, E, I, O, U, can become a schwa sound when it occurs in an unstressed syllable of a word.
Any vowel.
Any vowel. And this is where a huge number of pronunciation errors happen for learners. They often give a full, clear vowel sound to syllables that should naturally use the schwa, and that completely destroys the word's natural rhythm and stress pattern.
Can you give us some concrete examples of this stress shift causing a vowel to become schwa?
Absolutely. Look at the word official. It has 3 syllables. The stress is on the second syllable, O, F-A-V-I, shol. Because the first syllable O is unstressed, it reduces to schwa. Official. Or address, the noun meaning location. Stress is on the second syllable, a dress. The first A becomes schwa, dress.
Okay.
Another great multi-syllable example is photographer, 4 syllables. The main stress falls heavily on the second syllable. Photographer. What happens to the vowels in the first and third syllables?
They're unstressed, so they become schwa.
Exactly. It becomes photographer.
Photographer.
If you try to give those unstressed syllables a full O or sound, like photographer, the word sounds entirely foreign to an American ear. Mastering the schwa is mastering English rhythm. #7. Weak function words. You and to.
Okay, finally in this section, let's see how the schwa principle affects those super high frequency function words like you and to.
Right. When these words are unstressed in a sentence, which they usually are, they thin out dramatically. You often weakens to sound like, or even just yeah, depending on the surrounding sounds, and to almost always weakens to, the tot sound followed by the schwa. This is just another function of efficiency and flow.
You mentioned earlier that these exist on a spectrum. It's not just an on-off switch. How does that spectrum work in conversation?
It's all about emphasis and speed. If I'm specifically contrasting subjects, I might give you its full pronunciation and stress. Do you want to go or should I go?
Oh.
There, you gets the full uses sound.
But normally,
But in rapid casual conversation, a phrase like, do you want to collapses, do you becomes dia or ju, want to becomes wanna. So the whole thing becomes dia wanna or jua wanna. The schwa allows those sounds to be almost swallowed, facilitating speed. Similarly, I need to go. The to weakens to ta. I need to go. Sometimes it's so weak it almost sounds like I need to go. That weak sound facilitates the connection to the next word.
okay, this is great. We have all the individual components now, the R, the flap T, linking, reductions, schwa, weak forms. Let's try and integrate them one more time into that really challenging practice phrase you gave.
All right, let's put it all together. The sentence again. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport?
That one phrase really is like a mini masterclass in SAA mechanics.
It truly is. Let's walk through it again quickly. Do you want to collapses to yawana or juwana?
Weak forms.
Weak forms. Reduction. It becomes geta, flap T between vowels, linking.
Right.
Bottle of becomes bottle L, linking, schwa in of.
Okay.
Water becomes water, flap T, final R.
Got it.
For reduces to for, schwa reduction.
Yep.
To likely becomes to the, weak form of to.
Right.
So the whole thing, spoken naturally, might sound something like, do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport?
Wow. That sounds incredibly natural, but so different from the written form.
Exactly. Practicing that one complex phrase until it feels smooth and effortless incorporates almost everything we've discussed about SAA flow.
That level of detail on the mechanics is exactly what we needed. It really breaks it down. And speaking of detail, we've covered the SAA foundation, delving deep into the final R, the flap T, linking, reductions, and the absolutely crucial schwa sound. Just a quick reminder that you are listening to Mastering Flawless English, where we synthesize complex concepts like these to help you achieve your fluency goals. We're focusing on practical, actionable skills that move you past the basics towards truly natural-sounding English.
Okay, so the SAA provides a fantastic foundation, a sort of neutral baseline. But the reality is the U.S. is a huge country with incredibly diverse accents. Understanding these regional variations isn't just, academic curiosity. It's absolutely essential for advanced listening comprehension and just general cultural literacy. You need to be able to understand people from different places.
Makes sense. Let's start where arguably the U.S. English story really begins, on the East Coast, looking at those famous, often imitated accents of New York and Boston. #1, New York and Boston, the North Ice.
Right. Both of these major northeastern cities and the areas around them are historically famous for sharing a key feature, non-rhoticity, or R-dropping.
Like we discussed with British English.
Exactly. The R-dropping tends to happen especially when the R appears at the end of a word or immediately before a consonant sound. Historically, this feature is rooted in the prestigious dialects of English spoken in southern England during the colonial period, which were largely non-rhotic. So it's a historical carryover.
So water might become wada in a classic New York accent, and maybe car keys becomes car keys in a traditional Boston accent. It's not an error. It's a preserved historical phonetic feature.
Precisely. Now, moving to some New York specifics. The short A sound, like in cat or man, often gets tensed and raised, sometimes sounding a bit like ayoo, but maybe more distinctively the ah sound, as in talk or coffee, can become quite broad and pronounced. You might hear, I'm going to talk to them about the coffee. That broad, heavily articulated ah is very characteristic.
And what about the L sound? You mentioned the dark L before.
Yeah, in SAA, For an L, like in call or all, the tongue tip goes up, but the back might also raise a bit. In some traditional New York accents, particularly for that all sound, the tongue might stay flatter and lower in the front, with more resonance coming from the back of the throat, making it sound almost like call or all. It gives the L a heavier, darker quality.
Okay. Now, Boston has its own unique quirks too, right? Besides the R dropping.
It does. The OR combination, as in short or hoarse, often merges with the aw sound we just talked about, partly due to the R dropping. So short might sound like shot.
And that famous example.
Right. The park the car in Harvard Yard becomes park the car in Harvard Yard. But also think about the word force. The R is dropped and the vowel shifts, sometimes resulting in FOSS. This leads to that humorous sci-fi joke, may the FOSS be with you. It perfectly captures that Boston aw sound combined with R dropping.
Uh-huh.
And one more Boston feature. Often you'll hear a distinctive upward, almost questioning inflection at the end of declarative statements, even when they aren't actually questions. It can make statements sound a bit like questions to outsiders. Hashtag tag tag 2. The Southern drawl versus the Southern twang.
Okay, heading south now. The American South gives us at least two distinct, though sometimes overlapping, accent flavors. The drawl and the twang. They often get confused, but phonetically they are quite different.
They really are. The drawl is perhaps most famously defined by its leisurely speed and its rounded, smooth quality. Where does that slowness come from?
Yeah, where does it come from?
Primarily from its characteristic use of diphthongs and sometimes even triphthongs, particularly on short vowels.
Okay, let's clearly define diphthong again for the listener.
A diphthong is simply a vowel sound that involves a glide from one vowel position to another within the same syllable. Often in the Southern drawl, a short vowel will get an extra little sound, a schwa off glide, tacked onto the end.
So it stretches the sound out.
Exactly. For example, instead of pronouncing the short A, inhaled quickly, the drawl might stretch it into a diphthong, making it sound more like hayuv or hayuv. You hear that subtle extra glide that literally slows the delivery down.
And the drawl is also famous for that mixing of the short E and short I vowel sounds before nasals.
Right. That's another key feature. Pen, for writing, often sounds identical to pin, a fastener.
Yeah.
And get might sound like git. Ten sounds like tin. This is called the pin-pen merger.
Okay, so that's the drawl. Slower, rounded, uses diphthongs, mixes pen-pen. What about the twang?
The twang, in contrast, is typically spoken at a more normal, sometimes even rapid speed. Its defining characteristic is nasality.
Nasality meaning the sound comes through the nose more.
Exactly. The sound seems to be produced higher up in the vocal tract and resonates more through the nasal passages. While the twang often shares some of the diphthong characteristics and definitely the pin-pen merger of the drawl, the sound placement and speed are the crucial differentiators. The drawl feels slower and lower in the mouth. The twang feels sharper, faster, and more nasal.
Okay, let's try and contrast the delivery of a typical phrase. How about, I can't wait to get me one of those?
Okay, using a classic drawl, it might sound slower, more rounded, with those diphthongs. I can't wait to get me one of those. Notice the stretched vowels?
Yeah, definitely slower. Now the twang.
With the twang, it might retain more speed but gain that nasal sharpness. Can't wait to get me one of those. Still has the vowel changes, like can't for can't, but it's quicker and resonates higher. Recognizing that distinction, speed, plus resonance location is really key to effective listening across the South. Hashtag tag 3. The Upper Midwest, Minnesota.
All right, let's travel up north now to the upper Midwest. Minnesota is often cited for having a particularly distinct accent, sometimes characterized by an almost sort of Scandinavian or Canadian-like vowel quality.
Yes, that's a common perception. The most distinct feature often pointed out is a very pure, long O sound, frequently without the off-glide or diphthongization that SAA usually uses. When you say the state name itself, it's often pronounced Minnesota, with a very long monophongal O.
So less like oh and more like ooh, ooh.
A bit like that, yeah. The long O in a word like boat might sound like a very sustained, pure boat, and soap could become so-ope. It's a very clean, sustained vowel sound compared to the quicker SAA-O.
Interesting. And there's also a noticeable vowel shift sometimes, particularly with the short A sound before certain consonants.
Correct. This is often heard in words with a short A followed by a G. It's a form of vowel fronting where the A sound shifts forward and upward in the mouth, sometimes sounding more like a short E.
Like in?
The classic example is flag, which can sound more like fleg, or bag might sound like beg. So if you're visiting the region, don't be too surprised if you hear someone say something like, I put the groceries in the bag. It's just a regional phonetic feature. Hashtag tag 4. stereotypical Californian Valley accent.
Okay, let's head west to the Pacific Coast. The stereotypical Californian Valley accent, think Valley Girl talk, though it's broader than that now, seems less about systematic vowel shifting like the northern cities or the South, and more about prosody. That's rhythm and stress, right?
Exactly. It's heavily defined by its characteristic intonation patterns. One famous feature is the uptalk, or high-rising terminal, that tendency to end declarative statements, sentences that aren't questions, with a rising, questioning inflection.
Making statements sound like questions.
Sometimes, yeah. Speakers also often employ unique stress manipulation, maybe overstressing certain words that would typically be weak in SAA, while running together others perhaps even more rapidly than standard reductions. This can create a very bouncy, sometimes rapid-fire, and occasionally confusing rhythm for outsiders.
And the dialect component is often stereotypically characterized by the heavy use of the filler word like, isn't it? Used in multiple ways.
Yes, like is famously prevalent. It's used not just for comparison, it was like really hot, but also frequently as a quotative marker to introduce reported speech or thought.
So sentences structured like, I was like, no way, and then he was like, yeah, totally.
Exactly that structure. This extensive use of, can sometimes make conversations challenging to follow if you're completely unfamiliar with the pattern, but it's crucial to understand it's largely a marker of informal conversational style, particularly among younger speakers, not necessarily a grammatical error in that context. #tag5. Pronouncing the 50 U.S. states. Practical mastery.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, but still on pronunciation. When you're interacting with Americans, or even just consuming American media, knowing how to pronounce the 50 U.S. states correctly feels like pretty fundamental cultural fluency.
It really is. And the difficulty usually lies in, well, historical or linguistic influences that lead to unusual spelling versus sound combinations, or sometimes just misplacing the stress on the wrong syllable.
Let's drill down into some of the ones that consistently trip people up, focusing specifically on the correct stress and any unusual phonetic elements.
Sounds good. Let's start with Alabama. 4 syllables. Where's the stress?
Third syllable, Alabama.
Perfect. Alabama.
Okay. Alaska, 3 syllables.
Stress on the second. Alaska.
Alaska. Got it. Now, Arkansas, this one's tricky because of the spelling.
Very tricky. Crucially, ignore that final is in pronunciation. It's silent. 3 syllables and the stress is heavily on the first. Arkansas.
Arkansas, not Arkansas.
Definitely not. Arkansas.
Okay. Connecticut, another spelling anomaly. Looks like it should have more sounds.
It does. The middle C is silent. 4 syllables with the stress on the second syllable. Connecticut.
Connecticut. Right. French influence, maybe? Many state names seem to reflect those colonial linguistic clashes.
Often, yes. How about Hawaii?
3 syllables. Stress on the second, Hawaii.
You got it. Hawaii.
Illinois. Another silent S at the end.
Yes, another French legacy. 3 syllables, and the stress is on the final one. Illinois.
Illinois. Louisiana, that's a mouthful.
It is. 5 syllables. The stress comes late on the 4th syllable. Louisiana. That strong French history really gives this name its specific melodic quality.
Louisiana. Got it. Massachusetts.
4 syllables with the stress on the third. Massachusetts sets.
Massachusetts sets. Okay. Missouri. What's the deal with the S?
Generally, the middle S is pronounced like a Z sound. 3 syllables. Stress on the second. Miss O'Uri.
Miss O'Uri with a Z sound. All right. Nevada. I hear this one stressed differently sometimes.
You do. There's a common variation stressing the first syllable, NEVA day, often heard on national news. But the locally preferred and generally accepted standard pronunciation stresses the second syllable with a short A sound like in cat, Nevi-ada.
Navi-A. Good to know. And finally, Rhode Island.
The stress is on the first syllable of the second word, Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. And fun fact, it's not actually mostly an island, right?
Correct. The official name is the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, and most of its landmass is on the mainland. The island part refers to Equidneck Island, where Newport is located.
Okay, this is great. Now we move to the final stage of application. We're taking all these complex pronunciation rules. We've dissected the flap T's, the schwa reductions, linking, even those regional flavors, and applying them directly to real-world cultural context, specifically through famous movie quotes and common brand names.
Exactly. And remember, for this section especially, shadowing, listening, and repeating immediately after trying to capture the original rhythm and intonation is probably the best practice method.
Yeah.
Really mimic the delivery. #1. Famous American movie quotes, context and practical use. Knowing these quotes and being able to deliver them with roughly the right rhythm and cultural understanding is a huge shortcut to sounding more fluent and connected in casual American conversation. They get referenced all the time.
Okay, let's start with a high-energy one. Show me the money from the movie Jerry Maguire.
Right. Context.
Yeah.
It's shouted quite aggressively by the football player character Rod Tidwell, played by Cuba Gooding Jr., to his sports agent, Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise. He's demanding tangible results, proof of value, not just promises.
So practical usage today, it's not just about sports contracts.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's used more broadly anytime you're demanding payment, concrete proof, or evidence that a plan or investment will actually yield returns. It's about wanting to see the results, not just hear the talk.
Okay, give me a scenario. Maybe in business.
Sure. Imagine you're considering investing in a startup. After hearing your pitch, you might say, look, the presentation was great, the idea sounds exciting, but before I write this check, you really need to show me the money, show me the projections, the market validation.
Okay, demanding proof. How about a more casual use?
Maybe a friend keeps bragging about how amazing their new side hustle is. You could tease them by saying, all right, stop talking about how revolutionary it is, just show me the money. How much are you actually making? It can be playful, too.
Got it. Now, the gentler counterpoint, also from Jerry Maguire. You had me at hello.
Yes, a classic romantic line. Context. This is near the end of the film. Tom Cruise's character gives a long, heartfelt speech trying to win back Renee Zellweger's character. She stops him mid-speech with this line, meaning she was already convinced of his love and commitment right from the start, from the moment he walked in and said, hello. His whole big speech was unnecessary because she was already sold.
So practical usage, it means you were convinced instantly.
Exactly. It's used to stop someone mid-pitch, mid-explanation, mid-persuasion attempt because their initial offering, or just the very first thing they said, was already so compelling or desirable that nothing more needs to be said. You're already on board.
Scenario one, maybe shopping.
Okay. A salesperson is describing all the features of a new gadget. You might interrupt, wait, did you say it has a self-clean function? Okay, stop. You had me at hello. I'll take it.
Haha, nice. Another one.
Maybe you're deciding where to go for lunch with colleagues. Someone suggests a place and starts listing the menu. They have tacos, salads, burgers. Another person cuts in, did you say tacos? Okay, you had me at tacos. Let's go there. It's about instant appeal.
Okay, next. Here's looking at you, kid. So iconic from Casablanca.
Utterly iconic. Context. Humphrey Bogart's character, Rick Blaine, says this line multiple times to his love interest, Ilsa Lund, Ingrid Bergman. It's often delivered as a sort of toast, implying affection, admiration, and a sense of enduring memory. I'll always see you, remember you, value you.
So how is it used now? It sounds a bit old-fashioned.
It is a bit old-fashioned, which is part of its charm. It's generally used as a toast, similar to cheers, but with a warmer, more personal, often nostalgic sentiment. Or it can be used more broadly when you're acknowledging someone, often with affection or admiration, maybe looking at a photo or recalling a shared past.
Give me an example.
Okay, maybe you're raising a glass to an old friend you haven't seen in ages. It's so good to see you after all these years, to all our crazy adventures. Here's looking at you, kid.
Okay, and a non-toast example.
Perhaps you're looking at a graduation photo of a younger relative, feeling proud. You might murmur sentimentally, wow, look at you all grown up. You did it. Here's looking at you, kid.
It conveys warmth and recognition.
Nice. Okay, a quote that is apparently often misquoted, originally from All About Eve, but the common version is, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Right. The original line is slightly different. Fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night. But the ride version is the one commonly used. Context. Bette Davis's character, a famously sharp-tongued actress, is hosting a party and essentially warns her guests that the evening ahead is going to be filled with drama, conflict, and unpleasantness.
So the practical usage is metaphorical. A warning. Exactly. It's used metaphorically to warn people, or even just to comment, that an impending situation is likely to be difficult, chaotic, challenging, or turbulent. Get ready for trouble or difficulty.
Business example.
Your project manager just announced some drastic budget cuts and a tight new deadline. You turn to your team members and sigh, well, folks, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Okay. Everyday life example.
You're about to take your 3 young children into a crowded shopping mall during the peak holiday season. You might say to your partner, okay, deep breath, grab the kids, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It signals anticipated chaos.
Definitely relatable. Okay, a more modern classic from Finding Nemo. Just keep swimming.
Yes, Dory's mantra, context. The wonderfully optimistic but perpetually forgetful fish, Dory, repeats this simple phrase constantly to encourage herself and her worried friend, Marlin, to keep going, to persist through danger and difficulty on their quest.
And its usage now is pretty straightforward encouragement.
Absolutely. It has become almost the 21st century's universal, gentle encouragement to never give up, to persevere through a long, difficult, or perhaps monotonous task. Keep putting one foot or fin in front of the other.
So if a friend is feeling overwhelmed with work,
You might text them, hang in there studying for that exam. I know it's tough, but just keep swimming.
or even talking to yourself,
Totally. You're on a difficult run or struggling through the last hour of a tedious project. Come on, almost there. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. It's simple, memorable motivation.
okay, from the epic gladiator, are you not entertained?
Powerful line. Context. Russell Crowe's character, Maximus, a forced gladiator, has just dispatched his opponents in the arena with brutal efficiency. He then turns to the shocked, bloodthirsty Roman crowd and yells this question defiantly, almost shaming them for demanding such violence for their pleasure, implying they are ungrateful or hard to please.
So its usage is kind of rhetorical and maybe a bit confrontational.
Often, yes. It's a rhetorical question used to express frustration, sometimes offense, or maybe just exasperation at an audience's or another person's perceived lack of appreciation, enthusiasm, or response, especially after the speaker feels they've put on a significant performance or made a huge effort.
Example, maybe after a big effort at home.
You just spent hours cooking a huge, complicated holiday dinner for your family. You serve it, and everyone just starts eating silently, looking at their phones. You might throw your hands up dramatically, maybe jokingly, maybe not, and ask, well, is that it? Are you not entertained?
Okay. Or maybe after a presentation.
A speaker finishes what they thought was a brilliant, engaging presentation, only to be met with complete silence and blank stares from the audience. They might say, with a touch of irony, wow, tough crowd tonight. Are you not entertained?
Got it. Now, from the hilarious diner scene in When Harry Met Sally. I'll have what she's having.
Classic comedy moment. Context. Meg Ryan's character, Sally, is very loudly and dramatically faking. Well, let's just say intense pleasure. In the middle of a crowded diner, to prove a point, to Billy Crystal's character, Harry. An older woman at a nearby table observes this performance, assumes it's genuine and related to the food, and tells the waiter, pointing at Sally, I'll have what she's having.
So the usage is about wanting what someone else has.
Precisely. It's become a common, usually humorous, expression of observational desire. You see someone else experiencing something seemingly wonderful, success, enjoyment, a great meal, good fortune, and you express a wish to have the same thing, often implying you want the result they seem to be getting.
Scenario. A colleague gets a promotion.
Your colleague just got an amazing promotion, a big raise, and maybe even a corner office. You might turn to another coworker and whisper jokingly, wow, look at them beaming. I'll have what they're having.
Or literally in a restaurant.
You're at a restaurant, undecided about dessert. Then you see someone at the next table being served the most incredible, decadent-looking chocolate cake. You could point to it and tell the waiter with a smile, I'll have what she's having.
Perfect. And the final quote for today, the mystical line from Field of Dreams, if you build it, he will come. Though sometimes people say they will come.
Right. The original line uses he context. This is the mysterious, disembodied voice that Kevin Costner's character, Ray Kinsella, hears repeatedly, instructing him to build a baseball field in the middle of his Iowa cornfield. The he refers initially to the ghost of shoeless Joe Jackson, but ultimately represents something bigger, reconciliation, dreams, faith.
So the practical usage is about faith and effort leading to results.
Exactly. It's become a widely used expression of faith, almost like the law of attraction. It suggests that if you put in the effort, take the risk, create something of value or meaning, the build it part, then the desired outcome or audience, the he or they will come part, will materialize, often in an unexpected or seemingly magical way. It's about believing in the power of creation and dedication.
Example for someone starting a business.
Maybe encouraging a talented baker who is nervous about opening their own small shop because of competition. You could say, don't worry so much about marketing right now. Just focus on making the absolute best bread in town. Quality speaks for itself. If you build it, they will come.
Or maybe for a creative project.
Telling a software developer to focus on perfecting the code and user experience rather than rushing to advertise. Get the product right first. Make something people truly need or love. If you build it, they will come. It implies that value attracts attention. Hashtag tech check 2. American brand pronunciation. Focus on SAA mechanics.
Okay, that was great context for the quotes. Now let's see how those SAA mechanics we discussed earlier, flap T, schwa, linking, show up in the pronunciation of common American brand names. This is super practical for everyday listening.
Absolutely. Understanding brand names is a perfect way to reinforce these rules because you hear them constantly in advertising and conversation. Let's start with that SAZ rule. Think of Levi's jeans or Bose headphones.
Right. The S isn't an S sound.
No, in both cases, it's a voiced Z sound. And notice the long vowel sounds, too. Levi's and Bose. This follows the standard SAA rule for plurals or possessives. After a vowel sound or voiced consonant, the S becomes voiced Z.
Okay. Now, linking in action. That fast food chain. In-N-Out Burger.
Textbook example of natural linking and reduction in rapid speech. When people say it quickly, the final consonant N of in links immediately to the N of N out. And the final T of out often gets elided or dropped entirely because it's before another consonant.
So it sounds like...
It becomes almost like in-out burger. Or even in-out. The sounds just flow together to prioritize speed and rhythm over articulating each word separately.
Okay. Next, let's talk about elision. That's when a sound is completely omitted for efficiency, right? Typically a T or ED sound stuck between two other consonants.
Exactly. Think of the warehouse store Costco. Do you hear a T sound?
No, it sounds like Costco.
Right. The T is removed because it's scooshed between the N's and the C sound, which is K. It's just easier to say Costco. Same with the clothing store, Old Navy. The D in old often disappears before the N. Old Navy.
Okay. And that cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
Another great example, the final T in toast is often elated or significantly weakened because it comes before the CK in crunch. So you hear Cinnamon Toast as crunch. Illusion like this allows for much smoother, faster transitions between those heavy consonant clusters.
And that common reduction of and to just in it's everywhere in brand names too, right? Like Ben & Jerry's ice cream or Black & Decker tools.
Absolutely. Ben & Jerry's, Black & Decker. It maintains the natural rhythm, usually 3 main beats of the compound name. Saying the full and sounds too formal and slow in these contexts.
Okay, let's circle back to the flap T. American food, drink, and snack names seem to be a goldmine for this rule.
They really are. Think of chips like Doritos, Cheetos, Tostitos. All those T's between vowels because of the soft D flap. Doritos, Cheetos, Tostitos.
And the sports drink Gatorade?
Yep. The T in Gatorade is a flap T because it's between the A and the O sound, which reduces. And notice the second syllable uses the schwa. A-Jew-Raid, not Gatorade. Gay-Do-Raid.
Ah, schwa again. And the heavy equipment brand Caterpillar.
Perfect example combining flap T and schwa. The first T is a flap T cater. The stress is on the first syllable, CA, forcing the vowels in the second I syllables to reduce to schwa, CA Dupiler, CA Dupiler.
Okay, let's compare 2 common medicine brands to see how the letter Y can be pronounced differently. Tylenol versus Benadryl.
Good comparison. In Tylenol, the Y represents a long I sound, like in Ty. So it's Tylunol. Notice the schwa in the unstressed second syllable.
Right, Tylenol.
But in Benadryl, the Y represents a short I sound, like in drill, so it's B-E-H, new drill. Again, the schwa pops up in that unstressed middle syllable. Same letter, Y, different sounds depending on the word's structure and stress.
Very useful contrast. Finally, let's tackle 2 specific sound challenges. First, the appliance brand Whirlpool. What's tough here?
The challenge is the sequence of sounds, particularly the dark L. Both the L in whirl and the L in pool are typically dark L's in SAA. Remember, the dark L requires the back of the tongue to raise up towards the soft palate, giving the sound a resonant, heavier, almost aller quality. It's tricky.
So how should you practice it?
Focus on that tongue position, pulling the back up twice. Whirlpool. Feel that back of the tongue action for both L's.
Okay, Whirlpool. And the paper products brand Charmin.
2 things here. First, the initial CH is not the T sound like in chair. It's pronounced like SH. The second syllable vowel is, you guessed it?
Schwa.
Schwa. So it's H-R-M-N. Sharon M-N.
Got it. And one more, the mouthwash Listerine.
Key thing here is the final syllable. It doesn't reduce it as a clear, long E sound. Listerine. Don't shorten to Listerine. That's a classic example of keeping a full vowel sound even at the end, where the words structure and stress demanded, contrasting with all the reductions we see elsewhere. Hashtag Outro.
Wow, that was a truly comprehensive look at building fluency. We've really moved beyond just basic reading and pronunciation lists to understanding the intricate mechanics of connected speech in American English. We've broken down everything from the efficiency of the flap T and linking in SAA to the distinct vocal characteristics of regional accents like the Southern drawl, and even seen how it all plays out in essential cultural touchstones like famous movie quotes and brand names.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. We really hope this deep dive provided several of those aha moments for you, hopefully illustrating that pronunciation practice shouldn't just be tedious drills, it should be practical, maybe even fun, and definitely laser-focused on making your articulation crisp, fluid, and above all, intelligible. That's the goal. Remember that mastering these subtle reductions and linking mechanisms is often the quickest pathway to sounding more natural and, crucially, to speeding up your listening comprehension as well.
Absolutely. And drawing on everything we discussed, here is a final provocative thought for you to perhaps carry into your practice today. Take one of the really common high-frequency reductions we talked about, like changing want to wanna.
Yeah.
Now, try consciously integrating that reduction into one of those movie quotes we practice. Maybe like, I want to have what she's having. Say it both ways. I want to have what she's having, and then I want to have what she's having.
Notice the difference.
Yeah, notice how just using that one natural reduction immediately changes the rhythm and the flow of the entire sentence. It shifts it instantly from sounding like careful written English to sounding much more like natural, flowing, spoken American English.
And that subtle change in rhythm, that improved flow, is often far more impactful on your perceived fluency than achieving the absolute perfect pronunciation of any single isolated word. Focus on the music.
So true. Well, if you enjoyed this deep dive and found the content helpful for your English learning journey, we sincerely invite you to subscribe, like, and perhaps share this video. Your engagement really helps YouTube show our lessons to a larger public, and that allows us to keep creating content like this to help advance your English fluency. Keep up the awesome work with your practice, and we will see you next time.